This video will walk you through how to create your own customized button image in Adobe Spark. So at this point, I have simply gone to spark.adobe.com and I've logged in using my D155 email address. And right from the homepage, it will ask you to tell your story with Spark. And it gives you some custom sizes of different things to kind of work with and create. I tend to like my buttons square, or even if I plan on creating a circle or uniquely shaped button, I'm still going to use kind of a square as my image format to work with. And so based off of that, I know that Instagram posts are typically square. So I just use this as my kind of starting point so that I have a nice square canvas to design and work off of. So here's my perfect square that I'm going to create an image that I can use as a button on my Canvas page. There are lots of templates in here that you can search from. If they have this little yellow bookmark in the top corner, that means it's a premium feature. And so look for the ones that don't have that if you wanted to kind of create your own. So you can click on any of these. Let's say we're going to create a button from this template. So we confirm that that's the one we're going to want to use, and it dumps that template onto kind of our blank square canvas. So now that it's loaded, I have some text to work with. I have kind of a cool little border here, and all of this is customizable. So maybe I don't want a dog for my background image. So if I click on that image, you can see a new menu pops up on the far right side. And so I can remove the background altogether, or I can replace it. And if you go to replace, you can find free photos or go backwards to more options and upload your own. So if you find your own free use image through Google image search, or you've taken your own photo, you can upload that here. Find free photos tends to work pretty well. So since I teach science classes, maybe I can find something here. So let's add this as my background image, and once I select it, it's going to replace the other image. And you can drag this image to kind of position it where you would like. And then there are other features here on the far right side. I can change the size to zoom in on the scale of that image. I can rotate it. And then there's also a lot of cool filters and other enhancements that you can use here. So there are lots of different color schemes that you can use and play around with. The enhancements are going to give you more finite control over specific features within that image, like brightness and contrast and shadows. And so I think I'm going to stick with this fun colorized option and maybe go with a green and black theme for Crystal Lake South. And once you've played around with the picture, maybe you want to play around with the text. And so if you click on the text, it will give you the options to kind of change the color as well. So you can drag this around. If you know your hex code, you could type it in directly here. So now I have it in white. And perhaps you want to change the font as well. I don't need this other text, so I'm going to click on it and click my delete button on my keyboard to get rid of it altogether. And if you double click on the text instead of just clicking on it once, you can change the title of your button as well. So now I've changed the text, and you can change the size from the pop-up menu on the far right. You can change the justification so that it's right, left, or center. Lots of different options. You can add shadows and change the shape of the text and how it's arranged. You can even adjust the size simply by dragging it to make it a little bit larger. So there's one other element here. There is this nice kind of cool background. You can leave it, you can take it off, you can change the color, all sorts of options. So let's say that this was how I wanted my button to remain. From here, I'm going to download it. And since I plan on using this online, like in my Canvas courses, a PNG is a really great file type to use. So I'm going to keep that and then start my download. So now that I have that image, I can now import that into my Canvas course by going to Course Images and inserting it that way. And a button is simply just an image file that is hyperlinked. So once you create your image in a PNG file type, you now just click on it and create a link to somewhere else in your course, and that's what changes an image to a button. So the one final thing I would share is this is just a square image that's kind of a nice standard way to create a button. But if I go over here to my menu, I could resize this to any of those other features. If I decided instead that I wanted to create a header image to go across the top, I would look for something that's a little bit more landscape in its shape. I tend to gravitate towards the LinkedIn blog posts. I know a lot of people use the Facebook or the Instagram landscape option. I feel like these are really tall, so it ends up causing my students to have to scroll down to get to the meat of the content if I have a header image, where the LinkedIn one is just a little bit more narrow. So you can play around with whichever size you like. So if I click on this, you can see that it totally changes the size and the scale. So now I have this longer image and I can play around and customize it. The final thing, I'm just going to hit back so that I am back to this square shape. It's really big. There we go. So this was the button I created. If I go back to the projects list of all of the different projects within my course, you can kind of see this sample image right here that we created. If you hover over it, there is a 3-dot extended menu option here, a kebab button. And if I click here, there's a duplicate button. And so here, if I duplicate it, suddenly I'm going to change the name. And let's say this is going to be my Unit 2 button. And so duplicating it will now create a second copy that's identical. So if I worked really hard on the design of my first one and I want my other buttons to be similar, I can now just go into this duplicated one and edit this new version. So create a copy first in much the same way that we use Google Docs, and then kind of recreate that button. So now Unit 2, let's say this one is going to be viruses. And so it's going to change that, and I don't have to worry about doing anything else. Maybe you want to switch out the image. So again, you could click on that and replace it, upload your own, or search for a new one. But ultimately, I'm just going to download my PNG, and that will give me my second button that's ready to go. One of the easiest ways and most streamlined and efficient ways to kind of get these new buttons that you've created into your Canvas course is to create all of your image files first, download them all so they'll be in one chunk together in your recently created downloads on your Chromebook folder. Then you can import them all into your Canvas course at once and easily link them kind of in a bulk setting. So I hope this helps give you a quick tour of playing around with it, Adobe Spark, and gives you some inspiration to create and customize some buttons or header images for your own Canvas courses.